Well, whenever something happens about talk radio or talk TV, my ears perk up. And the other day, I was watching news coverage about the Jenny Jones television program that got some guy killed. I mean, this is the first fatality surrounding a talk show. It is unfair to blame television necessarily, but the circumstances surrounding it were extremely interesting. And I think portend for bad things ahead if something is not done. We're going to talk about that. Steve Winzenburg works over at Grandview College. He's found a way to turn a bad habit into a career, that is watching television.
How did you find me out? You're right. I was just thinking about that the other day, that really just basically watching TV has made me famous now, because first it was with TV preachers.
Yes.
And now it's with TV talk shows.
Yes. Now you have a subspecialty?
Well, it's weird. All of a sudden last year, I was trying to think of a topic to do on a senior seminar course.
Uh-huh.
And in senior seminar, you can basically choose the topic that you want and vary it from year to year.
Uh-huh.
And I just started noticing that talk shows were getting hot, the TV ones at least.
Yes.
And I thought, let's do something on TV talk shows. So I started taping everything in the world, and I started ordering tapes of old TV talk shows and put this class together. And this is our first semester doing it, and we already have had nationwide publicity on it, since it's about the only course of its kind in the United States.
And that's probably the way it should be, too. So tell us the story on this thing, because I read some of the news accounts. But who is Jenny Jones, and who is she on, by the way?
Well, Jenny Jones is the third highest rated TV talk show host right now. She's on, we get her in Des Moines on another station at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
So,
all right.
She has been on for 3 years. The first year that Jenny Jones was on, she flopped. She was at the very bottom of the ratings. They retooled the show. For instance, she personally went in, had plastic surgery done, had her breasts changed.
She became retooled as well,
right.
It sounds like.
And then the show changed. It changed from just kind of a general nice talk show to a heated battle type talk show.
So she's sort of like the female version of Morton Downey?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
And that's, as a matter of fact, we watched tapes with Morton Downey a couple weeks ago, and then when we watched Jenny Jones last week, everybody said, boy, it's amazing how this show and others today, like Ricki Lake, have become like Morton Downey's show. Even though 10 years ago everybody said they hated Morton Downey, all of the hip new talk shows today are using that style. It's a very combative style.
Yeah, kind of in-your-face, Family Feud kind of thing.
Absolutely, and they do it within the first 5 minutes of when the show starts. Donahue, for instance, he's been on for over 25 years,
right.
And he may see some fireworks half hour into the show, 45 minutes into the show. But these shows, like Jenny or Ricki Lake, they see it within the first 5 minutes. And that's what makes these shows so compelling to watch.
All right, so let's slow down here a little bit. You said she's the third rated?
Third highest rated TV talk.
Oprah's got to be number one, right?
Oprah's number one, and Ricki Lake is number two.
Ricki Lake is number two.
Oprah is declining. Oprah's lost about a fifth of her audience in the past year because she has now decided to take on soft topics.
Yes, because she's gotten genteel and she's grown past the artificial stuff.
And so basically...
Because she's physically declined too.
Well, I think she's just gotten older. That's part of it. She's mellowed now that she's in her 40s.
She's grown up, eh?
Yeah. And what you're seeing is the three talk show hosts that have decided to take this combative style on raised to the top. And those are Ricki Lake, Jenny Jones, and Jerry Springer. They've all changed their shows from when they first went on the air. And they all use basically a combative style where they bring on three people in some type of an oddball relationship. And they reveal some kind of secret that one of those three people didn't know about on the air. And it just turns into an unbelievable situation. What happened on Jenny Jones last week was no surprise to my students in the class because we have watched this week after week in my class, and it just figures that it's going to go that far at some point.
All right, so what happened?
With Jenny Jones?
Yeah.
Well, they had the threesome came on, and supposedly
what was the premise?
Well, supposedly the premise was that they were going to talk about long-lost loves, and the guy was brought on thinking he was going to be meeting a female. when in actuality he met a male who liked him. And so he became very embarrassed about this, that here everybody else appeared to know that he was supposedly loved by this other guy. He just got very upset, and within a couple days after the show, he went out and shot the guy. And it happens, every single show does this, Jan, in terms of on the air. They bring somebody on, they surprise them with something, and usually after the show is done, it ends. But in this case, it didn't end.
It's an ambush, basically.
Absolutely,
and
for one of the three guests, right?
Well, so they don't know which the guests are going to be ambushed when the premise starts?
No, we just...
do the guests know who's going to be the one to get hosed?
All except for one of them. See, that's the trick, is everybody's in on it except for the one.
Oh, so they have to, in essence, lie to the individual that's going to get nuked.
You got it. And we've just got lists and lists, for instance, on Geraldo. Famous case last fall on Geraldo. They had a soap opera star come on, and they lied to him. They said that we're going to talk about you being adopted. Mm-hmm. And the soap opera star said, now, you're not going to try to reunite me with my birth mother, are you? And they said to him, absolutely not. We will not do that. And you know what happened? He got on, and 10 minutes into the show, they bring on his birth mother, and now he sued Geraldo for that.
Good. I mean, that's good.
Yeah. And then Jenny Jones had another case last fall where a woman was asked to come on, supposedly, about reuniting with an old boyfriend. But that wasn't the case. When she got on, her sister was also on the show. And her sister on the show said, I slept with your boyfriend. And you never knew it.
Yes.
It's just incredible. We watched the tapes of these shows, and it's incredible to see how embarrassed that person is.
Well, why would somebody agree to do something like that?
Well, it's very carnival-like. You know, it's exciting to see something odd.
Well, I know, maybe from the viewer's point of view, but why would the participants agree?
You mean the other participants?
Any of them. I mean, why would anybody want to do this to them? What kind of defective individuals would seek out a chance to be humiliated and deal with deep family relationships on national television?
But remember that the one who's being humiliated thinks they're coming on for a good reason. The others involved are looking for their short fame, I would say, and that's what we've talked about quite a bit. Why would anybody go on national TV and do this? Why would anybody keep these secrets in private life, but then they get on national TV in front of millions and say the same thing?
Yeah.
And essentially...
Have you come to a conclusion?
Yeah, we have. And remember, we've been going for 2 months on this class, and we've seen it every day. And the conclusion is people have a void in their personal life, and they want to somehow become worth something.
I'm inclined to think that people who are attracted to watching it are also in that same category.
Absolutely. It makes you also feel better about your life. You become more moralistic in your judgment. You look at Ricki Lake or Jenny Jones' show, and you see those guests sitting there, and you look at them and say, you know what, my life's not so bad. I sure didn't cheat by taking my sister's boyfriend. There was a show that we watched, an incredible show, where the mother had sex with the daughter's fiancé. And not just a little bit of sex, we're talking about a lot. And she ended up stealing the fiancé from her daughter. And on this show, the mother and daughter just screamed at each other. And when we talked about it afterwards in class, we said, you know what, how many of you have ever wanted to scream at your mother? Everybody wants to scream at their mother every once in a while.
Yeah.
So you have an opportunity to live that out vicariously by watching television and see that girl scream at her mother. And it makes you feel better when you watch it.
Oh, it wouldn't make me feel better.
Well, it does, believe it or not. If you watch it like we do, though, boy, do you ever get sick of it fast. You can hardly believe it. You get so tired of seeing this show after show.
Anyway, we'll continue here in a moment. Steve Winzenburg is, you teach media?
Yeah, I teach communications, radio and TV.
Over at Grandview. And he's become an expert on different forms of communication on television.
I'm hesitant to even tell people where I teach anymore because I might embarrass the college.
We'll continue. If folks, if you have something to say in the subject, I'd be very curious to hear it. Personally, I'm attracted by a lot of television talk, and some of it's very, very good. At least it used to be.
Like what?
I'm trying to come up with an example now that I'm thinking about it. You know, Sally Jesse used. See, I haven't watched a lot for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But Sally Jesse Raphael used to deal with some subjects in a fairly responsible way.
Well,
and did she have to adjust?
Yes, really, Jan, what we're talking about is the producers and not the stars. It's the producers that set up the topics. And Sally Jesse, probably in our 2 months of watching, has had the worst shows of any, but it's not because of Sally Jesse, it's because of the producers setting up these guests. And then Sally's response on the air is always shock, and she wants to console these people, and so they feed right into that mothering way that Sally Jesse has.
Steve Winzenburg is here. We're talking about some kinds of, well, I guess TV talk. TV talk is nothing new. It's been around for eons. But you're saying now that, Professor Winzenburg, that in order to gain and maintain an audience, they have to do more radical and bizarre things.
Yeah, and really it started with Donahue, I would say. Donahue's been on the air for about 27 years, and just in his first week on the air back in Ohio in the 60s, his first guest was Madeleine Murray O'Hair, and then he went on later that week and had some sex subject, somebody who was out displaying their body. And, he set the tone from the very beginning, and yet he always had a mixture of serious shows with the more absurd shows. And a good example is this week. We are no longer in a ratings sweeps period, and so this week Donahue is doing his serious topics. Yesterday he had liberals versus conservatives. Today Donahue's doing an anti-crime show. Tomorrow it's Ralph Nader. Thursday it's the death penalty. Those are guests that you see when it's not a ratings period. That
near and dear to his heart.
Absolutely.
So he goes into his political agenda when he doesn't have to get an audience.
Get ratings, right?
Yeah. So then he
freely admits that he uses those other wacko subjects to get the audience during the rating sweeps period.
Yeah.
And that's why every February you just see every show doing this.
So then when he is in ratings, then you see the models, the exotic dancers, and the
transvestite midgets. Right.
Transvestite midgets? Did he really do one on trans?
Yep.
You're making that up.
I'm not making it up.
I thought
Ponder that for a few minutes. I tell you, we've seen it all, too. But the thing is, now, Donahue set the tone, but remember, he always took himself seriously because he'd always bring on serious topics.
Yeah.
What other shows now, like Ricki Lake and Jenny Jones, have seen is that the serious topics completely turn off the young audience, and therefore every show must be like the absurd Donahue shows. I will even say I think Oprah contributed to this, because when Oprah started 10 years ago, she would also tie in some of these oddball topics, but she would do it from a younger standpoint. But now that Oprah's reached middle age, she's tackling things from a middle age standpoint, and so you need these younger people like Ricki and Jenny Jones to really give a young perspective. And the advertisers want the young viewers.
And so you have to do bizarre and strange, vacuous, ridiculous things in order to do that?
Well, you've got to do them, and you've got to do them very quickly. For example, Ricki Lake has now set the pace for everybody else. Here's what Ricki has done different and updated. She has 8 to 12 guests per show.
My gosh.
Donahue, he'd have 2 or 3, maybe 4 guests on a show. Oprah, maybe 3 or 4. Ricki says, hey, bring them on, let them have their each 10-minute segment, and then just keep adding chairs. And some shows, it'll be 10 or 12 guests. Also, Ricki is very fast-moving. Within the first 5 minutes, you want confrontation. Ricki has added a live camera backstage so that when you see the couple starting the show, the third person is backstage on a live camera, seeing this all for the first time and showing their shock at it. Also, Ricki uses very sensational CGs, character generators, the lettering that's up on the screen. It's not just simply a topic of mother versus daughter. It's, I hate my mom for sleeping with my boyfriend. That's what she'll put up on the screen, and that keeps viewers attracted. Now, if you watch every other talk show now, they all do that because Ricki started it, and she became so successful that now they've all adopted it.
Huh. This stuff is cyclical? Do you think this good stuff is going to be around a while, or are we going to run out of freaks pretty soon?
Well, we do have a disagreement in class about that. Some of us think that Ricki, for instance, will last probably about 10 years. Oprah's lasted about 10 years on top, and now she's headed down.
But Oprah is a solid, is smart, just a very bright person.
Right.
Are you a fan, by the way, folks? Do you watch some of these things in the afternoon? Are you hooked? Do you get hooked? I'll admit to you, Steve, every once in a while I like to watch Oprah. At least I used to, but I haven't had a chance to recently.
That shows that you're middle-aged, Jan.
You think so?
Yeah, generally, the audience in Oprah is aging. They're generally in their 30s and 40s, and the advertisers know that that's getting to be a little bit too old, and so they want people who are in their 20s and early 30s, so they go more for Ricki now.
Is that right?
By the way, I should say, I think one question for the people listening may be, do you have any outrageous subjects that you've seen on these shows that I can share with my class? Because we've talked about them, but there are some really crazy ones, and maybe some people out there...
The strangest premise that they can remember?
What are the strangest subjects they've had on these shows? Because we've seen some strange ones. But we were talking before the break about how now the 90s talk show is producer-based.
Okay.
And not star-based. And what that means is the producer has the idea for the show and then goes out and finds a person to host it. And it's the actual guests on the show and the topic of the show that gets the ratings, not the host. Oprah and Donahue attracts people because they are stars. Ricki Lake, Jenny Jones, Jerry Springer are all people who they went out and got as hosts and fit into this new format. For example, Ricki Lake's producers started out 4 years ago with an idea for this young adult-based talk show, very fast-moving, fast-paced. They auditioned 4 different Hollywood actresses to host this format, and Ricki was the one who was chosen. And then she was told, you better lose 100 pounds or people aren't going to trust you, because you're going to be big and you're not going to look good on TV.
Literally 100 pounds?
Oh, gosh, she's ended up losing more than that. In the long run, I think she's lost almost 150. I mean, she was almost 300 at one point, and now she's down to around 150 or 140.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
She was an actress and played the bubbly, overweight young female parts in shows, and they told her that they liked her attitude on the air, but that she needed to lose the weight. So she had about a 6-month period there where she had to lose the weight fast.
Wow, how'd she do it?
She won't tell. I'm serious. Treese Thompson from Channel 13 went out and interviewed her a couple weeks ago in New York, and Treese came back and told us that the only thing she couldn't ask her about was how did she lose the weight, because she was real touchy about that.
Really? So I think if she were smart, she would tell everybody and write a book.
Yeah, but I think what's being implied is that she did it in an unhealthy way.
Oh, okay. Steve Winzenburg is our guest. He's an expert in daytime talk shows, daytime TV. Steve, let's talk to some folks, okay?
Okay, great.
And you were asking for what earlier?
Just the craziest topics that they've heard on these shows.
Let's talk to some more folks, and let's begin with Maxine. Good morning.
Yes. I just happened to watch one yesterday.
I can barely hear you, Maxine.
I just happened to watch yesterday part of it. I can only stand so much of it.
Yeah.
And I have to turn it off to discuss.
Maxine, I think you've broken your phone.
No?
I can hear her.
Can you hear me?
There, we can hear you just fine now.
I say I have to turn it off in disgust after a while, but yesterday's show was very disgusting about who was king. The man was king of his home, and the people are so ignorant that I can't help but mention the audiences. If there's ever an indictment against the school systems and education, especially in New York or wherever these shows are originating from, it's got to be. I have never heard such stupid youth.
Right.
I mean, the people are just downright ignorant.
This is,
she's right, because the reason why most of the shows like New York is because those kind of people, I know people are going to get mad when I say this, but this is not me saying it. The producers admit this. People in New York are much more verbal. They come across a little bit more ignorant, and that actually helps stir up the whole process a little bit. It makes everybody a little bit more angry because you're just shouting at each other.
Well, I can't help but notice the difference between Rush's audience, Rush Limbaugh's audience. I mean, there you have intelligence. You may not agree with the people, but at least they put on a good show. I mean, the picture that you see is good. And when you see these people and listen to yesterday it was, well, my boyfriend, I would leave him, only I have 2 kids by him, and, he treats me like a dog. We have 2 kids, and he's my boyfriend. I can't believe that we've stooped so low.
Well, that's a great observation. You know what one phrase has been heard the most of all the talk shows we've watched these 2 months? That the man is the dog. I'm serious. The girlfriends call them dogs. The mothers call them dogs. Men are being treated as dogs. And one of the conclusions we've come to is that these shows love male bashing.
Well, that probably is true. Then they have a pin that they put them in, if they're bad.
Yep.
It's asinine. No, I can't even think of a word.
Which program is this?
Ricki Lake, and she is just awful.
Yep.
She is the worst of the bunch.
And she is the second highest rated. And
I know.
And within the next few months, I think she's going to overtake Oprah.
That
as being
shows
the most
our
popular.
values, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Thank you, Maxie.
Okay.
Bye-bye. You're now, they couldn't do this kind of a program in the Midwest.
Of course they do. You got to be kidding. A couple of them are out of Chicago. It's not just Oprah that's in Chicago. I think they have 3 talk shows that are based out of Chicago.
Jerry Springer. Well, he used to be the mayor of Cincinnati.
Right.
And he quit because he paid for a hooker with a check.
He was like the youngest mayor of a major city. Yeah, that was about 20 years ago.
Yeah. And he survived, became a TV anchor and a commentator. And now he's doing this stuff.
It's amazing. But again, Jan, Jerry's show is popular because of his producers, because they bring people on, and Jerry reacts in shock because he isn't told all the things.
Well, he's pretending to act.
Well, it's possible, and even Ricki admitted that some of it's a little bit of pretend. She's acting when she's shocked because they have briefed her on it.
Do they find these people? Somebody asked me this when I go out and speak. Where do they find the people to do these programs?
Okay, I'll tell you.
They advertise.
Yeah, I've been to 3 or 4 of the shows, and what happens is, like, I've been to Donahue and I've been to Geraldo, and what happens is during the show, the producer comes out and says, we're looking for hot topics, and they mention a couple topics, and they say, does anybody here know of anybody like this? And you raise your hand, and they say, here, take this sheet, fill it out, and we'll get in contact with you. Plus, every show now, during the commercial break, comes on with a little thing on the screen that says, call us at this toll-free number if you've been jilted by your boyfriend, or if your mother's sleeping with your boyfriend, call us at this number. And people call in. And they showed Therese Thompson on her WHO report last month show that some of these places have 12 answering machines, and they're kept ringing constantly.
Are there professional guests? I mean, do they get paid for this, by the way?
No, not on these shows. They don't get paid, but they do put them up in a hotel and fly them out, so their expenses are paid.
Okay.
Professional guests is a good question. They have people who are fraudulent.
Have problems, will travel.
Right, but they're fraudulent guests. For instance, we watched a tape last week. The same couple appeared on 3 different talk shows, Ricki Lake, Sally Jesse, and Montel Williams, and they claimed they had completely different problems on each show. In reality, they weren't even married. They were just friends, and they wanted to be famous. They had 3 guys come on Ricki Lake's show and claim that they were in a battle over each other because they were all gay lovers.
Uh-huh.
And the audience just ate it up. And the next week, the guys came out in public and just said, we just had fun. We aren't really gay lovers. We just went on TV for fun. Montel Williams,
yes,
out of New York, he had a guest on who claimed that he had raped 90 women.
Yes.
When the guy left the show, the police arrested him. When he got to the police station, he said, I was just making that up. He said, I just wanted to be on the show. And the killer is, he said, the producers encouraged me. They told me, make it real sensational and exciting. You see, the producers sometimes know that these people are fraudulent, and yet it makes for great television.
This is
incredible.
Yeah. The last lady was talking about Rush Limbaugh, But that's a different category.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, our class categorizes shows into 6 different categories, and we cover everything from the Today Show all the way to David Letterman.
Right.
What we're talking about basically today is what's called audience participation shows, where the audience actually gets involved. Whereas Rush doesn't do audience participation. Rush's audience is there, but they don't really participate in the show.
Yeah. Let's talk to some more folks who are joining us on a cellular call. This is Brian. Good morning.
Good morning, Jan and Steve. I'll make a comment and 2 quick questions. I'm on the cell phone, can't hear you very well.
Yeah.
The comment is, I think that there is a definite difference in the quality of programming if you compare daytime to nighttime television. I heard you were just talking about David Letterman, for example. The name that pops into my mind in terms of quality talk and quality interviewing is Tom Snyder. And, you never find any of these goofy cheeseball type of topics on his type of show, or really any of the nighttime talk shows.
You used to. Tom Snyder pioneered cheesy talk at late night.
Oh, yeah, but with that old Tomorrow Show. And that old Dan Aykroyd laugh. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's just evolved to the point to where, as you said earlier, as Oprah has matured into middle age, I think Tom has too, and he's just kind of come back to that more centered one-on-one individual type of rapport, whereas where you're in front of an audience, there is that pressure, I think, to perform. There is that pressure to bring up the conflict, to get the audience involved, to make them feel like they are a part of it, whereas if you're just in one-on-one, do you think the daytime talk shows really sort of reflect a moral decline in our society? Does that really come across on these talk shows?
I think that's a good question. I honestly do not think these shows reflect the moral decline of the audience, because the audience begins to feel morally superior to the guests. I think the audience is using these shows to try to feel more moral about themselves. You see, they're using it to say, hey, I'm not that bad. I certainly didn't run around on him. My mother didn't steal my boyfriend. Those kind of things.
So this appeals to the self-righteousness of the viewer?
That's what I'm saying. The viewer becomes more self-righteous. Not necessarily that the viewer is immoral, but that they just feel more moral because they see people worse than them on television.
But doesn't it? Do you think it has a ratcheting down or the reducing of the standards of population at large, though, in one sense? Because it seems as if, well, there's these people out here doing these weird things.
Yeah, and it's scary because television claims to have no influence on people, and yet we see what happened last week with Jenny Jones, where a television guest was certainly influenced.
But do you think that's fair? I mean, this guy, if you can get that outrage is to go over and shoot your neighbor because your neighbor's a pervert, I mean, that's a bad sign.
Jan, it happens on the shows. The people aren't shot, but there's fights. We have probably seen 6 or 8 talk shows in the past 3 weeks in our class where people have just literally fought. For example, Sally Jesse brought on a couple, a very nice couple. They were young. They were newly married for a couple of years, and apparently the wife had an affair with somebody. And Sally Jesse brought them on under the supposed topic of, we're going to reunite. When actually, after 5 minutes of talking to the couple, they brought on this girl's, the friend, the boyfriend who she had the affair with. And on the show, the boyfriend, the one she had the affair with, got down on his knee and proposed to her. And she took off her wedding ring, gave it to her husband, and put on the guy's engagement ring. The husband got up and started pounding the guy to a bloody pulp in front of a national audience.
Well, at least there's some healthy instincts left.
And it's happened time after time. And you know what? The producers of these shows love it.
What?
They absolutely love it.
Hang on. Gonna come back here. I'm going to have to hire one of these producers on 1040 WH. Steve Winzenburg is here. He's from Grandview College. He does a course over there on media. We're talking about TV talk. Just about out of time here. It used to be kids come home from school, turn on the tube, watch cartoons, and the Brady Bunch. Now what do they watch?
Well, now on every single affiliate, you've got talk shows straight from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. It's all the wildest talk shows. For instance,
do kids watch this stuff? The kids are attracted to this stuff?
Absolutely. One of my students said that her 9-year-old niece rushes out of school at 3:10 in the afternoon. She rushes home to make sure that she doesn't miss any of Ricki Lake. Now, Jan, Ricki Lake is the crudest, most lewd show on television now. She every day has sexual topics on, totally inappropriate for kids.
Oh.
And yet, that's what we've got our kids watching now.
Oh.
For instance, Sally Jesse, 2 weeks ago, had a show on wild girls. girls who are teens and not even in their teens.
The scary thing is some of these kids may be tempted to emulate this stuff because they think it's cheap. Steve, thank you for taking the time to chat with us here today.